In today's episode of Spiraling Up, what do our team members hate about professional services websites? But first, have you been feeling a little bit gray today? There's a reason, and we're going to talk about why. Welcome, everybody. This is Spiraling Up with Hinge. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Spiraling Up podcast, the podcast for professional services marketers and business leaders where professional services marketing comes to life. My name is Austin McNair, and as always, I'm joined by my colleagues and co-hosts, Mary Blanche Kramer. Hey, MB.
Hey.
And Joe Pope. Joe, good to see you again.
Good to see you again. I'm excited to spend some more time with you, Austin.
We've been spending a lot of time together recently. We'll talk about that. But as we get started, I want to say thank you to our listeners and all of those watching on YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, or even better, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. What questions do you have? What kind of topics do you want us to talk about in future episodes? This is a new podcast, and we want to hear from you in terms of the things that you want to learn about. Yeah, here we are, guys. Another episode. I'm super excited.
Yeah, me too. I forgot you guys have been spending a lot of time together. Y'all had a presentation recently in Nashville. I want to hear. Tell me about that.
Half in, half out of Nashville.
Half in, half out. Austin and I both traveled to Nashville, but only Austin came through the internets. I was there in person. We had a now client prospect of Hinge's that wanted us to come in and do a presentation for their leadership team. We had an idea for a topic that they really loved, but it was not one that I felt super comfortable with. So we brought in the expert. In this circumstance, it's like anyone who listens to this podcast knows, Austin knows all things Hinge's research in terms of the high growth study, buyer behavior. And this is a group that's in the process of bringing some of these methodologies into a leadership group and wanted some good old fashioned Hinge research. So yeah, we worked together and created a presentation that involved being half in a room and half on a screen. I think it went well. Austin, what'd you think?
Yeah, I honestly, I thought it went better than I expected. I mean, I was a little bit nervous being on the listening end. I was grateful that I wasn't the only one in the digital conference room. That similarly, they had some team members that couldn't be there in person. So I didn't feel like totally on an island. Although like in the room, I could tell, Joe, like, you were standing, you were kind of commanding the stage, kind of, guiding the conversation.
Way too kind, but thank you.
No, but it worked out really well. And I mean, I think it was an interesting experiment to kind of navigate the challenge, like the experience of like half of a virtual presentation, but also the in-person. And Joe, I mean, for you being there in person, that had to have been like worth the experience of traveling down there and spending time with the client, because we do give presentations virtually all day, right? Every day.
That's right.
But like the actual, like getting one of us to be in the room there, I have to imagine you think there's some good value there.
Absolutely. I think this has been a reoccurring topic, but as marketing continues to evolve, COVID clearly was the gasoline on the digital fire, right? Where everybody wanted their virtual town hall or virtual webinar, whatever it might be. But we're getting back to some of the basics in terms of professional services, and that is bought based on trust, expertise, relationships, things along those lines. And nothing says relationship like flying down and meeting with people in person and enjoying some Brazilian food. They ordered Brazilian food in honor of our virtual friend Austin.
No way.
They awesome. Did.
Yeah, I was wondering how you guys were going to kind of riff off of, because you're so good at kind of riffing off of each other when you're in a presentation room together, whether that's together virtually or together in person. So I was really interested to hear how, kind of doing the one-on-one would go off. But sounds like it went well.
Yeah, it worked out. Joe and I have spent a lot of time together. We're going to spend more time in this episode. We've got a great session planned here. We're going to talk about the 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. But first, Mary Blanche, I know that we have a pivotal story that we want to get to. Why don't you introduce that for us?
The world is losing its color, and it's a quiet shift happening all around us. We're seeing a real move away from bold, vibrant maximalism and towards a much more muted grayscale minimalism. UX Magazine recently spotlighted this trend, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Take Apple, for example. Clean lines, softwood tones, open spaces. And even McDonald's has made the shift. Their restaurants once boasted the classic red roof and bright yellow interior. But these days, most locations are rocking the neutral palettes. So it's a complete vibe shift from before. But this isn't just a design preference, it's tied to bigger forces, things like economic shifts and a desire for simplicity, quality, and sustainability over flashy excess. It's a turn towards timelessness, and it's reshaping how brands show up today. So, since none of us co hosts, are experts in design, we've brought in a special guest today, Hinge's art director, Christian Baldo. So, Christian, what do you make of the shift towards gray?
Well, hello. When did you get here?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for having me on here. I couldn't agree more. It's very obvious this shift towards minimalism, towards a more subdued color palette, toward more refinement, toward more overall elegance and classiness. That trend is very evident in lots of different contexts, lots of different arenas, whether it's product design, whether it's website design, everywhere, really fashion. Very distinct trend toward a more minimalist aesthetic.
Christian, so I want to hear more from you on like this whole theme of like, is it minimalism? Is it all about like accessibility and like being able to read things, or like is it just safer at this point? Because I can't tell me your experience. I feel like in client meetings when we like kick off a new website or a new brand, there's a lot of people that are just like, I just really like that clean aesthetic, that look of like, where it's really easy to read. Like, how do you as a designer like hear that, but then also are you encouraging folks to go beyond that a little bit in a way? Like, how do we not feel so gray?
I see this as a trend, and it was all as with all trends, they come and go. We're currently in a space now where black and white is seen as opulent. It's seen as high class. It's seen as premium. You have a high ticket item like an iPhone or like really expensive sneakers. So you're getting those from you're getting those from brands like Apple. You see it on Adidas. You see it on Nike. You see it on the Tesla website. You go to any of their homepages. It's black and it's white. You want people to understand that this is a high quality, revolutionary, innovative product. And a lot of brands followed suit because why wouldn't you want to portray your brand with that same sort of notion? We want our customers to pay this price that we're asking for. Let them feel like that's what they're getting. And so the black and whites, the grays, the neutral colors, it represents a sort of reservedness. It gives the brands this feeling that we don't need to be loud to show that we know that this is a quality product, that we know what we're doing, that you're going to get an excellent product that's worth the premium that you're going to be paying for it. Now, that being said, that did set forth a trend for companies that aren't really,
that aren't Apple.
That aren't exactly right. They're not Apple. Now, something else that I believe is keeping this sort of aesthetic fresh comes back to this idea of legibility, of accessibility. As we're growing more and more sensitive as a society, to making sure that materials that we release, products in the wild, need to be easily accessible and legible to a much broader audience. The idea of contrast and simplicity, visual simplicity, has become, even outside of style, just sort of a necessity of life, of general design. And so you're not going to, from a design standpoint, you're not going to get more contrast than black on white or vice versa.
You're kind of referring to something we run into quite a bit, especially with things like ADA compliance with websites and other areas. You're not going to get more accessible than black on white, right?
I am surprised that it's continued on this far in terms of style, in terms of fashion, in terms of popularity of popular culture. However, one thing that I feel like is keeping it lasting is this idea of accessibility, and that really weaving into our everyday lives, not just in terms of being able to read text on websites or reading signs and things like that from a utilitarian standpoint, I think it's really weaving its way into popular culture.
So, Christian, for keeping in mind the benefits, right, which you've outlined here,
Mhm.
like what what are some things for you as an art director where you're kind of encouraging our clients to be a little bit more bold, right? To not maybe play it just safe with, the minimalist theme, but to actually texturize and kind of propel like the brands forward.
It's a tricky question. It's a tricky situation that we're in currently from a design standpoint, because as I mentioned, in terms of accessibility, these things have become a necessity. So using black and white, I don't. That's not something that's going to be going away anytime soon. However, keeping that in mind, differentiation is something that we're always coming back to in terms of brand, in terms of messaging, in terms of visual identity. As the black and white minimalist aesthetic is applied to and adopted by brands across the board, regardless of what it is they're providing or what it is they're manufacturing, it's going to become, like I said, less and less a special thing. And so color is definitely one of those ways that we push our clients towards standing out, not even just amongst their competitors, but at this point, standing out as a brand to the world.
Do you have an example of a recent project that you've done that you're proud of that kind of does just that, what you were outlining?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In a lot of the work that we've been doing in most recent past, we have had clients approach us saying we want the Apple look, we want that minimalist, that stark, that classy aesthetic that Apple established years ago. Obviously, we deliver on that. We'll give them options that really encapsulate that sort of style aesthetic. Black and white, lots of negative space, letting the imagery hold all the weight of the visual presence. And then in contrast to that, we'll also provide them one where an option to consider where we're really pushing that. And whether it's whether it's adding a splash of color or really going full force into bucking the trend and going far bolder with the color choices, with the color strategy. And funny enough, in our most recent history, the clients have been seeing where we're coming from in terms of saying, this is the trend.
They're going the color.
Yeah, these are the trends we're seeing. This is
Interesting.
what's been going on for the past 10, 15, however many years. This is a great way to stand out. This is a great way to establish differentiation. You're brave and innovative enough to really push this. Let's do this. And they've been all in. And so a lot of the sites that we've been working on for our clients recently have been far bolder in color. Now, that's not to say I grew up as a child of the 80s. And so that was all neons and free floating geometric shapes and things like that. That's not what we're sharing with our clients exactly. As near and dear to my heart as that aesthetic is, we're still making sure that the overall presence is that of professionalism, is that of sophistication, is that of innovation. But it's with a strategy that takes us outside of the current trend that we're still in.
Well, clearly it's working for us, Christian, and the results are in the awards that you guys win and I put behind me on this backdrop.
I got one.
It's somewhere up there.
You guys got to send me one of those things. I want one. I want to take credit for Christian's hard work.
That's what I do every day.
Well, Christian, we know you're a busy guy. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this topic. Super interesting. I really want us to plan another design-oriented pivotal story so we can have you back on soon. Thanks, man. We appreciate your time.
Well, this has been great. You know where to find me. I'll always come hang out with y'all. It's like being at the cool kids table.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
That's right. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, Christian.
All right. And for our listeners, let's turn to our next segments where we're going to stick on the topic of design a little bit. We're going to talk about 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. All right. So we all know that when it comes to your professional services firm, there's probably not a single thing more important to your marketing than your company's website. And I can say that at Hinge, we haven't just designed websites, but we have audited and reviewed thousands of professional services websites at this point. So now I'd like us to turn to a new segment inspired by the early 2000s. Joe, you're our kind of
1999.
1999. We're going to channel the energy of the movie 10 Things I Hate About You. Joe, who was in that movie?
Oh, let's go through it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, R.I.P. Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles.
That is the energy we're channeling here from 10 Things I Hate About You. We're going to give you guys 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. So, Joe, Mary Blanche, I asked you guys to prepare for us, some of your pet peeves. And let's build our list of 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. Mary Blanche, I am so excited. I want you to start and kick us off here. What is one thing that you hate about professional services websites?
All right, Austin, I'm going to come out of the gate pretty strong on this one. This is definitely a long-time pet peeve of mine personally, and I think for many people, but an overcrowded or overly large navigation menu is hands down like one of the biggest things I'll notice right off the bat. If you have too many options for a visitor, they're trying to find what they're looking for, you're giving them too many options, you have poorly organized categories, it creates this decision fatigue for a visitor just right off the bat. And it can make it difficult for them to, quickly find the information that they've come to your site to find. And, so that can make the user frustrated, and kind of in a worst case scenario, they can become so frustrated that, they potentially just abandon your site altogether. And then, considering how much all of us use our phones every single day. I mean, I know for myself, a lot of when I'm looking for information, going to a website, I'm actually on my phone, and the mobile experience that you create when you have these large, complex navigation menus, it's just not great. So for me, that one's a no-brainer, top of my list.
What comes to mind is the fact that professional services organizations a lot of times are just looking for what's that next new service, whether they went out and bought another company that was doing it and folded them in, or they're just launching it as a new initiative. And I think what's ended up happening is you've got these decision makers or groups of decision makers who are just thinking to themselves, well, we need to be on the website too. And then that leads to the next thing. And then, oh, well, we also have a specialty industry that offers this as a service, so let's add that there. And then next thing you know, a company that's like $20 million, not even like a massive company, they've got more things on their menu than a Deloitte. And that decision fatigue is real. And we see that all the time. And when we actually start to look at the data, and when we're kicking off a website project, we actually go in and look at what are your user behaviors, and organizations that come to us with a website, a lot of times to rebuild it, but a website that's got a giant menu full of 100 freaking options. First off, nobody's going to all of them. And second off, their bounce rates are higher.
Joe, you kind of just made the point. So for each of these, we're going to provide an example of who's doing it well so that you can go turn to. If you're watching on YouTube, we're going to be sharing these on the screen here. If you're listening, we'll try to describe what we're looking for. So Joe, I love how you kind of gave the Deloitte example, but in this case, we're actually looking at the Accenture website. I have brought this up before when talking to clients. This is a huge management consulting company, right? And if Accenture can afford to have a navigation bar that is, this is still pretty big, but it is alphabetized and organized, and the top level navigation is really just 4 options: what we do, what we think, so that's their insight section, who we are, and careers. Yeah. They were able to keep it real simple, right? And there's a lot, under what we do, right? There's a lot of capabilities listed. They've got their industries listed as well. It's a pretty big list, but again, this is one of the biggest companies in the world, right? And I think the idea that we're talking about here principally, right, Mary Blanche, is just simplicity, ease of navigation, right? We don't want there to be a lot of friction, and we don't want to be inventing like new thing. We're not calling things something new or like trying to be super clever with our navigation. It's usually a place where It's just straight to the point. We want to get people where they want to go quick. Anything
Right.
else to add here?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to add, I mean, you want it to be intuitive. And, even on this, they're taking the user through the journey in the correct order of operations. I think another thing we see often too is trying to get a tertiary level also worked into a navigation, right? So clearly when you go to these pages, there are going to be additional options for you to choose from. But kind of taking the user through the correct journey order of operations so that they're not overwhelmed from the jump. So yeah, Accenture is a great example.
It was interesting. I just pulled Deloitte out of thin air, and I wanted to just verify what their navigation 4 options as well. And they're pretty much the same 4 options, though their Our Thinking button is the third of instead of like the second one, I think, on the Accenture site. So these large organizations are creating navigational simplicity. Why should an organization that isn't as large make it into a complexity that would potentially detract the types of clients they want to have more of, and also with careers being important, obviously the types of folks that they want to have come work for them.
Love it. All right, so let's put that at the top of the list. Huge navigation menus, number one thing that we hate about websites. I've got the second one, and this one is close to my heart because it involves positioning, it involves messaging, it involves differentiation, it involves clarity. And so the next thing that I hate about professional services websites are bad homepage headlines. I can't tell you guys how many websites that I've gone to that feature generic, vague, or and in like a different direction, like overly clever headlines, like trying to make like a pun or something. And it doesn't immediately communicate who the firm is, what is their value proposition, what do they do, right? I think we all understand at this point that your website has essentially 3 seconds to tell a user who's coming into your homepage that what you do and who you are, right? It has to happen immediately. Especially right now, we're seeing a big dip in traffic coming to other pages, right? So if you have a blog and maybe traditionally you got a lot of traffic to your blog, well, Google is now making that a lot harder for you, right? So most of the people coming to your website are going to be entering into your homepage. And your homepage needs to clearly tell people who you are and what you do. And it can be aspirational too. So for the example I wanted to give, I brought up one of our clients, Hewitt Zollers, and the headline that we put at the beginning of their website says, "We're designing the landmarks of tomorrow." I like that. They are a design agency. They work. They're engineers. They're architects. They build the world. They're building the landmarks of tomorrow. And there's something there that's a little bit like aspirational and like iconic about what they're saying. But it's very clear what they're doing and what their mission is. And then the call to action there is to see their work. So they're designing the landmarks of tomorrow. You click there, it takes you to their project portfolio, which is really beautiful and well laid out with some good filtering tools. What do you guys think about bad homepage headlines?
You were talking about aspirational, and like the thought that comes to mind is the different tests for something that is a differentiator. And, you should be very much trying to differentiate yourself on a homepage. And a lot of times people then take that too far and put a word salad of, I don't know, biggest tropes that you can make up in business, right? One thing that you'll see on accounting advisory firms is we'll be your trusted advisor, right? Or like something along those lines, which, if everybody says it, then nobody actually says it, right? It's just not something that actually differentiates you. It's also not something that people care about in their buying journey. They care about working with experts that are going to solve their specific challenges. So the Hewitt Zollers example is awesome because if I'm thinking about an iconic landmark, right? It's here landmark, that's something that's going to stand the test of time. And I'm working to think through the process of what it's going to be like to get that type of setup. That's my aspiration for what my project is going to be. This is a group that's coming right out of the gate and saying, that's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last point I would make, I mean, we've talked a lot about like the verbiage and the differentiators, but the way I like that you picked this example, Austin, because it's not only in the words right off the bat, who they are and what they do. It's also the tie-in with the imagery, and you pair those two things together, and within that first 3 seconds right off the bat, the site that you're on and what they're all about. And then, Joe, to your point on the trusted advisor piece, I can't tell you how many websites I've been to, and the copy is clear on what they do, but they have a huge main stage image, and it's two people at a table, talking, and it's from that bit, for as much real estate as that takes up right there on the front, until I get down to that secondary level of reading what that copy is underneath, I still don't know. So Hewitt Zollers, bam, right out the gate, the words, the imagery, and in the first 3 seconds what they're all about. So yeah, good choice.
MB, I think you were touching on our next one that Joe submitted. So Joe, why don't you tell us about one thing that you hate about professional services websites?
I hate stock imagery. No, I'm kidding. Stock imagery is reality, but I think the thing that really stands out is when it's just uninspired. There's no direction behind it. Visual design of a website is bland or it's dated. There's no aesthetic that aligns with the personality, for example, that an organization is trying to bring to the table. We've asked this question as an organization for 15 plus years, the research that Hinge has done. And it is, what is the amount of folks that are going to go to your website before they reach out and talk to you? We are well into the 90s of the percentage here. People are going to go to your website. So if you are completely ignoring that part of the buying journey, whether you are a Fortune level company or a single shingle, if you're not thinking about somebody going to your website and what it looks like and the experience that it's giving from the jump, you are already behind the 8 ball, and because your competitors will.
So Joe, before we show, who's doing it well, I know you have a bone to pick with a particular professional services industry.
The government contracting space is by far the worst offenders in this, where they have spun up, no offense to Wix, but your Wix or your Square websites from 10-year-old, 15-year-old templates. And the first thing that comes to their mind is, well, what do we populate our visuals with? And it seems that they all kind of settle on one of 3 things, or sometimes all 3. Generic images of DC, not landmarks, although sometimes landmarks, but like those brutalistic style. I just think of like the FBI building, for example, which I think they're trying to get out of that building as quickly as possible, right? But the idea of just this really ugly type building that's got to be for some reason on their homepage. That's one. American flags, and I'm a big America guy, so don't get me wrong there, but government contractors, you do not need to immediately plaster the stars and stripes on your homepage, because everybody else has done that already. And the third one, Eagles. Eagles always seem to find their way in there. Another America thing, but just good bird, but not needed.
Yeah, I recall
I'm not
from our
passionate about this at
conversation
all.
I remember from our conversation with Megan in our previous episode, she talked about that need to communicate about being about the mission, staying mission critical. What is the outcomes for government contractors? I think all that's true. I think, Joe, what you're saying, though, is there's still a degree of inspiration that can be breathed into a brand, right? Into a visual look and feel. And in that space, and really a lot of the professional services spaces, we see it a lot with CPA firms as well, engineering companies. There is just a tendency to just kind of go into some of the safer, well-beaten design paths. And that's why I was really happy that we could talk to Christian on this episode. So for who's doing it well, I picked Teal and Team, which is an example we've looked at before, but this is one of our award-winning websites that Kristen, our whole design team had a huge hand in. I won't say overhauling this brand. It didn't need an overhaul. It needed some touch-ups and just some other design assets to really kind of make their existing portfolio of work really shine through. And when you go through their the work they do, everything from including the video there at the top to just little pieces that are bright and colorful. We talk about kind of the trend towards gray earlier in this episode. He mentioned that we've had some clients recently that have leaned into being a little bit bolder recently, and Teal and Team has definitely fallen into that category. And just the way that images are styled across the website, they really pop. Little textures here behind their logo, just really nice things that build an inspiring visual brand and communicate sophistication, elegance, and originality. This really can differentiate your brand if everything's just kind of muted and looking the same. So that's who we chose for inspired art direction.
Yeah, I was going to say the caliber of their work. It really shines through in the imagery. And when you look at that video, like right there on the homepage, it really, like, they use their images to create that video that kind of
That's
takes
right.
you on an experience right from the get-go.
Yeah, and just to pull the curtain back a little bit, there's a lot of both custom imagery and stock imagery in here, and you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And that's a key thing here. I know I started this whole segment by kind of poking fun at stock, but realistically, when done correctly and woven within things like a portfolio section, the MB like you just called out, you can really make something look special.
Well, the reality is that
award-winning.
not every company is a interior design firm, so that is an advantage that this particular client has. Some companies are, technology companies or implementation specialists. So it does take a little bit of creativity in terms of bringing some of those brands to life. But is the investment worth it? We would say yes, for the reason that Joe mentioned. All right, guys, the next thing I have on the list is a website with no filtering tools. I can't stand this, and this is something that happens all the time, especially with websites that have been around for a long time, and they're maybe fast growing companies. Joe, earlier you mentioned like M&A, and sometimes these websites they get really big. There's a lot of content. In some cases, there's really great content on the website, but they provide users with no way to kind of filter the information in the way that would get them to the right content faster. So who I have here is I have an example of another Hinge client here, Hanson Professional Services. And this was a really big emphasis point for this team and our website design team here of how do we coalesce, or how do we bring together a lot of this content that they had created over the years from many different blogs, many different spaces, and really bring a unified experience and make it easy to find content quickly. So here's some examples of where they do that. If you go to their work section, so their project portfolio, not only can you search by service, you can search by market, you can search by location. Really helpful. Well, how about when you go over to Insights? You go over to Insights. Okay, we have a featured, this is a version of filtering, a featured item, kind of guiding the user experience. What might they be interested in? But then also, what market are they in again? Or what blog or kind of service area might they be looking for? So if you're looking for, some content on the airport planning space, for example, boom, there you go. They've got a couple of options there for that. These kind of filtering tools allow users to get to where they need to go quickly. And I'd say at this point, man, that is a must have. And I hate when websites don't have it. It's such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would go as far as to say it's like whether a site has 20 pieces of content or 200 pieces of content. I mean, that filtering is so key for the user, like allowing them to be intentional about the information that they're looking for. Yeah, I'm with you, Austin. It's a must have.
All right, Joe, the next one is in your court here. What's the next thing that you hate about professional services websites?
Well, I talk for a living, which people listening to this podcast might question that choice as a career. But I will say that one thing that I always lean on when I'm talking, especially to new prospects and so forth, is the idea of having stories of success of how Hinge has potentially been led an organization like them, for example, to success in the past. And organizations on professional services organizations that don't make a commitment to talking about their success on their website, those are groups that are completely missing a connection point in how buyers buy the types of things that we sell, right? And so when you go to a website and you don't find past performance, you don't find case stories, or even just examples of the types of successes that they might have, because you'll sometimes run across groups that have confidentiality, for example, like that you aren't able to specifically name an organization. Well, you can usually say a company of this size in this industry in this state. Like, I mean, you don't need to completely preclude yourself from being able to point to your successes. We just know from experience, and certainly anybody who talks sales and BD know that if you're not able to talk about the types of things you've done in the past, you're not going to be selected. You're going to fall behind. And a website being your number one place to house this type of information, it needs to be front and center. I mean, we talked about the Teal and Team example. That's a great one. I know there's other organizations too. And Austin, I think you're pulling one up right now, right? That have done this well.
Yeah, so it's interesting to me, Joe, that you brought up the kind of issue of like the NDAs and you have to anonymize case stories. That is a solution. What's interesting to me though is that it's not necessarily a problem that I'm seeing the biggest players in the space have. So I'm always kind of challenging our clients like, can we find solutions either before we sign new engagements that kind of allow us to have access to tell more stories, or are there ways that we can have curated examples that we can still include? Like, can we? Because I do think there is something important. While you can anonymize a case story, I would say that the best and kind of shining examples out there are the ones that can put a face to the name, right? And so for this reason, we're kind of dialing in here on the Slalom website. Slalom's a huge consulting firm. They have a very elegant website and strong user experience. A lot of our clients use Slalom as an example of kind of a user experience and a style that they admire. One thing that we really kind of reference about them is the way that they feature customer stories. They put customer stories up here in the main navigation. That tells you one thing, even though this isn't like an engineering company that needs to prove, the work that they've developed, or an architect showing, the things they've designed. This is a consulting company, and stories is right there at the top inside their main navigation. And when you go and look at these stories, they are putting names to these: Salesforce, Clarion, Melbourne Indigenous Transition School. I mean, it's big and small, in other words. And clicking into these, these are, you can tell they've put a lot of investment into making these stories interesting, visually interesting, and backing them up with, at a glance and stats, things that really speak to the issues that they solved in the engagement. These kinds of case stories, like you say, Joe, I think they're really essential in the business development space. But as we've been talking about, potential buyers will check out your website ahead of time. And this is often a section that they'll go to because they want to see the proof. They want to see that you have the past performance and the experience to solve the problems that they have. Mary Blanche, I think you've got the next one.
Yeah, I've got the next one, and I think it actually ties really well into the one that we were just talking about, being that it was past performance. So lack of expert bio pages is a big one for me, and failing to highlight your leaders' individual expertise or their industry contributions. I know for myself, when I'm going to a website, or if I'm a prospect and I'm going to going to a company's website, I want to know who I'm working with, and I want to know that the company has expertise in the service that I'm looking for. But particularly in professional services, I want to know who those people are and what their expertise is. Like, who am I going to be engaging with? I see you just pulled up ML&R, so this is a really great example. It kind of goes to our earlier discussion on filtering. I mean, ML&R has a ton of team members, and this actually allows you to drill into if you just want to look at the people from a particular industry, you can do that. And then with the accordion functionality that you're pulling up now, just another really easy way to get the very specific information you want, or all of the information about them. So the ability to read it all, or specifically what's important to the user. And then I always like to say, the expertise is important, but if somewhere in a bio you can find a way to draw a connection, a personal interest, something that anything you can do to create a connection, it goes further than you think.
I totally agree. And the big objection we get, Mary Blanche, is, well, if we feature our people on our website, that increases the likelihood that headhunters are going to come and they're going to steal them. They're going to find them there on our website and they're going to start poaching them away from our company. And we've been getting that objection since I started at Hinge. And it just, the trend though just has not changed. That the fastest growing companies, the ones that are investing in their people, they are highlighting the expertise of their people, and they are even have a strategy to get their people out there and building more visibility for the company. So the benefits I have to say that they outweigh the costs significantly.
Greatly outweigh.
Greatly. All right. Actually, MB, you just hit on one that for me is my next thing that I hate about professional services websites. It is when great thought leadership content has been published on the website, but instead of being attributed to a person, it is attributed to just the company. It's not attributed to the actual expert that that spent time writing it. And again, I think this is one of those things that it's a miss opportunity. Like I mentioned, what do we see instead? People will either not list any author at all, or it'll be like generic staff, or this is by the marketing team. And I just think that when you do this, you're losing that crucial differentiator in professional services, which is your people. And you're kind of stripping your people and your experts that are doing business of that opportunity to kind of share their involvement in the firm, the things that they're proud of talking about day in and day out, the kind of problems that they're solving for their clients. If you strip away their ability to have any kind of authorship rights on your website, well, then, like, what kind of a message does that send? First of all, I don't think you're going to get a lot of people to contribute to your thought leadership program in general. If you're asking people to write blog posts for you, but you're not letting them put their name on it, I bet it's probably pretty hard for you to get get anyone to write anything, right? So for this example, I really like one of our clients, Propeller. They do a nice job, not just in their blog posts, but in some of their premium resources, even associating that with some of their experts. So, for example, right here, we have on screen their 2025 People and Change Insights Report. And right there at the top of the page, you can see that they list their senior People and Change director, Riley Smith. And they give you access to his bio, reference to other articles he's written, and access to his LinkedIn. They're not hiding Riley. They're putting Riley out there as a visible expert in this, whole people and change part of their business. And for me, I think this is definitely the better way to do it. I can't stand when companies try to hide their experts or just have thought leadership content that is produced by the company. For me, that doesn't work.
I mean, if you're talking about the user experience piece there, you pointed to some of those links underneath Riley's name and even LinkedIn, which would actually take you off the website in a different window, of course, but it would still take you off the website. But when people are going through this evaluation process, when your prospects are going through this evaluation process, and they've already given you the time of day to make it past your homepage, and now they're really starting to dive into the nitty-gritty details, giving them that next step in the journey is key. And we talked about it in the form of filtering, where they could then filter to look for another similar type project. But in this circumstance, oh, wow, I've just read that we have this awesome piece of premium content, People and Change Insight Report for 2025. Well, Riley seems to be this real smart fellow. I wonder what else Riley's written, for example. Well, I can just take a one-way trip to all the articles written by Riley Smith. And wow, you're scrolling through it. We've got 9, 10, 11 different types of pieces of content that somebody can consume. Next thing you know, when this prospect reaches out, and they will, right? But when they reach out, they already know Riley. They're even starting to trust Riley. And if we're talking about what's going to make a difference when you're comparing yourself to, Propeller's a consulting firm. We've been talking about some large consulting firms. But if we're trying to set ourselves apart and be memorable, we're creating that opportunity in this type of setup.
All right, guys, we have time each. We got to build out this list of 10 things I hate about professional services website. We each get one more. All right, one more. So, Joe, what is your last thing to add to our list?
I'm a visual guy, guys. Well, one thing that really stands out to me is visual elements on a website, and video is key here, right? And I think for the longest time, video was unobtainable. It was expensive. It was a challenge. It was the type of thing that a smaller organization would just shy away from the jump. Well, we just spent an entire intro pivotal story in one of our more recent podcasts about how you can pretty much create AI video with the stroke of the keyboard. You got 20 different words in a prompt and you've got a video in front of you. So the excuse now to shy away from video is non-existent. We see it left and right. If we're talking about investments that actually make a difference, though, a website, a place where you can show the experience that somebody will have if they work with you, nothing is going to do that better than things that just move. Like you can get multiple concepts into a 10-second reel, and you can show it in a manner that plays within the design nestled there. You could also use it from the perspective of thought leadership content. Hinge's podcast, for example, where this is a video podcast. We have a section on our website that is focused on video content from this podcast, takes you to YouTube and other different ways. So there's a variety of ways that you can bring video into a website experience and have it hit home.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one example, that I pulled up here for us is the WSP website. It's just a good, elegant, attractive way to kind of kick off a user experience. When they come to your website, what does it mean to have video, but also use it in a way that's easy to read? Now, I think we could make a slight comment here about, what we meant with like abstract messaging and headlines. They see the world differently, but WSP is, one of the largest professional services companies in the world. So I think they can get away with it a little bit. But the team felt this was a good example of like leading off with video that captures your attention, shows kind of like it connects to the messaging, right? Seeing different aspects of the world, and for us, this was kind of like a great example of using the website experience and featuring a little bit of video in a way that captures attention.
Yeah, I think the only reason they can get away with that type of headline is because the video elements behind that headline, and if you are just listening to us, just key in WSP.com, show and pivot those images in a manner where you would think about it, think about it in like a slideshow, right? Old school projector style with slides. And it's giving that impression of these video elements being stacked on top of each other. That's a different way to think about video. And then as you scroll further down in the who we are section, they keep that type of messaging at the front of these different cuts or small windows of video and take you through that journey of how that messaging actually applies to them, giving you this emotional experience that is designed not just to be cool to look at, but also teach you something. And in the professional services space, that's key. So like if you're talking about a group that's kind of going from that abstract angle, but nailing it, WSP is one of them.
Yeah, I think experience, the word you use there, Joe, is key. We did some video recently for another client, and in their project section of their website, an engineering firm, and they have great photography, right? But we did a couple examples where we leveraged video partially through like drone and other B-roll on those project pages, and man, does it just bring the whole thing to life. I mean, you feel like you're there. So it's about creating that experience from the user from start to finish.
All right, Mary Blanche, what is the last thing you want to add to our list of the things that you hate about professional services websites?
Okay, so for me, I want to take us to the careers section of a website. When you are, a potential recruit coming to a website to look at a company that you're maybe interviewing for, I mean, of course, we want you to have any job openings that your company has listed on your careers section. That's number one, right? But that's not the only thing that potential recruits care about. A lot of what they ask for, and I do a lot of interviews, for Hinge and recruiting for our organization. And, a lot of things that they want to know about are, what does mentorship look like? What does professional development, career advancement look like within your organization? What is your culture like? So, it's always a pretty big missed opportunity when you're not able to articulate those things on something like a website, for those potential employees, because those are all things that they care about and create that fulsome package of what it's like to work for your organization.
Yeah, and MB, for the example we chose, this goes back to our superlative episode. We called out this company, Burns & McDonnell, because they do exactly what you say. They answer a lot of those questions that job seekers have when they come to your website and they're looking. Burns & McDonnell, by the way, not a Hinge client, but this has been an example we've used as kind of an example of a firm that's probably ahead of the game in terms of speaking to those different kind of audiences and listening and answering those questions. Lots of use of video, which is excellent. But they have this section here, Find Your Careers, that really allows people to explore. Like, are you an experienced professional Are you early in your career? Are you looking for an internship? Military veterans? I mean, they personalize this with messaging that cuts to what those people might be looking for at that stage of their career. So, for example, experienced professional, career stability, employee ownership, value added. They want to, are you adding value to the team? You go to early careers, what's the difference? Well, early careers, career mobility, employee ownership, meaningful projects. So there's a little bit of a difference here in how they're kind of messaging to different generations and people at different parts of their career. And then, like you said, MB, like answering some of those questions, like what kind of benefits are there? What does it look like to apply an interview? What does training and development look like? This is a really robust career section. And I mean, just compare this, MB, to the alternative. Just one single, hey, this is where you apply for jobs. I mean, what a missed opportunity if you compare the two things. If you're in a hiring mode right now and you're really trying to grow your team and get the best talent, which of these two options would be the best option for your website?
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you can curate the content for the type of role, like you were just walking through, I mean, that's like the 10 of 10. So much of what we see, it's what I said at the start. It's, here are the job openings. If you can even take that one step further in providing additional information, I mean, that's a big jump in the right direction. Now, this is the 10 of 10. So good choice.
Okay, guys, the last one is in my court. The final thing that we hate about professional services websites. And for me, that is, and it's so sad. I get so sad when I see this, right? A professional services website that completely ignores search engine optimization best practices. It's poorly designed for SEO. Oh my gosh, it's so sad, right? It's just a missed opportunity. And look, guys, we understand that the world of SEO is changing. For the example, I'm actually going to use the Hinge website.
Cheater.
Hinge, we have invested in our own SEO for years. And when we kind of run benchmark and diagnostics against a lot of other marketing agencies and a lot of other competitors of ours, we totally outperform in terms of benchmarks and the kind of traffic that we can garner to our website, given the size of our agency. We go toe to toe with big agencies. And our website metrics and our SEO performs way better. And that's because of a lot of investment over the years in creating great content, keyword-driven content, and investing perpetually in an SEO strategy. Now, today, if I had to tell the audience a secret, that doesn't mean that our traffic is just going up and up and up into the right all the time. Actually, right now, our traffic's going down, which is sad. It stinks, but there's a reality at play right now that search engines are changing. The way that buyers are searching for solutions is completely been overhauled, right? And so the likelihood of someone clicking through on a search engine result page, that is less likely today than it was in the past. So was this an investment in SEO, like was it a waste because in 2025 it's not performing the same way? No, absolutely not. Because what we're starting to see now, guys, is that we're getting leads coming in from places like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity. These sources, against our permission, without our permission, crawled our website and stole all of our content. And we're being found now in these large language models when people are searching for solutions. Because for years, we have invested in creating high quality content that is consistently positioned around what Hinge does. We are a marketing agency for professional services firms. And these models understand that. Google understands that. And so this long investment that we put into SEO clearly positions us in a way that when people are searching those tools, Hinge is now starting to get found more and more. And this is really, what I want all of our clients to have, that experience where even if maybe traffic is going down to maybe some parts of your website, the overall position of your company, whether it's search engine or whether it's large language model, whatever pick your robot, it understands what your company does and what you do. It is such a necessity, and it blows my mind still that there's people out there that say, we just don't have time. It's too much work. We're not going to invest in SEO. We're not going to invest in creating content. that is going to, in the long term, really, I think, handicap the experience that your users get, your potential buyers get when they're checking you out.
It's quality over quantity, right? Austin, you talk about some of that declining traffic. And yes, we are a marketing agency that will admit that our overall traffic was going down. But I will tell you, when we look at that traffic that's going down, it's not really in the audiences that we necessarily care about, right? And we can see those types of things through Google Analytics and other different ways. And our conversions, especially in our middle funnel traffic, it's still leading to conversations. In fact, it's more qualified conversations than we've ever had. And that is because of that commitment to SEO. So while we can't control the mothership Google, we can play in a manner, and we can develop content in a manner, we can optimize websites in a manner that are going to give us our best chance to be successful. And at the end of the day, we've seen in research what it is that makes you successful. And it is that thought-provoking, insightful information that you put into your insight sessions, your services pages, your industry, and so on and so forth.
All right, guys. So let's recap the list. The 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. We had huge navigation menus, bad homepage headlines, uninspired art direction, no filtering tools, inadequate case stories, a lack of expert bio pages, not attributing experts to thought leadership content, no video content, no interesting career section, MB, the one that you called out, and then finally, poorly optimized websites for SEO. That is the 10 things that we hate about professional services websites. We hope that everyone listening to this, that your website doesn't go against the grain of these things that we don't like. And if they do, you can fix them. That's the great thing about marketing. All this stuff can be redone. All this stuff we can iterate and get better at.
We can help you fix them.
We can help you fix them. Joe, this idea of doing this list was inspired by the 10 Things I Hate About You movie, which has this iconic scene from the character Kat, who delivers this raw, emotional poem in front of her class. So she reads that poem, Joe, and I really wanted to ask you, I wanted to challenge you. Could you recite for us a poem about the 10 things that you hate about professional services websites?
I have not actually read this through. I'm just reading it for the first time. We're going to try to capture my thespian days in high school, and we'll give it a shot. We'll do our best, because these are the 10 things we hate about your website. I hate the way you start. No clear idea in sight. Your homepage headlines dimming all the light. I hate your art direction, so bland and so plain, and navigation menus causing endless pain. I hate no filters there on content fast and wide, and meager case studies where impact loves to hide. I hate the expert bios, so brief, so unrevealing. No names on thought leadership, no human feeling. I hate your lack of video, a missed and silent plea, and career pages blank for all the world to see. But mostly, I hate the way I don't hate you, SEO. Though they claim you're dead, it doesn't show. Not even close, not even a little bit, not even at all.
Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff.
Thank you.
Well, see, if you listen to this podcast and you make it all the way to the end, there are some great treats that we put for you here at the end of these episodes. And we hope that you've enjoyed another episode of Spiraling Up. If you're here, hit the like button, subscribe, leave us a comment. Let us know, what's the one thing that you hate about professional services websites? What did we miss? What did we cover in today's episode? And on behalf of MB, Joe, myself, this has been another episode of Spiraling Up. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.